Hey folks, how's it going? Rosendo from MLH here. Welcome to Global Hack Week, Data Week. I must admit, this is one of my favorite things that I'm getting to do this week is kick it off with y'all and introduce a really amazing speaker that we have from Oracle Database. Just a quick reminder for everyone out there, make sure that you're registered for the workshop. You can go ahead and head over to the link that I have scrolling across the bottom of the screen there. I'm also going to add the link in chat. Hey, how's it going, Giselle? And Katir as well. All right. Well, welcome, y'all. Let us know where you're joining from. Let us know if you're excited. And yeah, let us know if this is your first Global Hack Week. That's amazing. You're in for a treat if you're a veteran with this Global Hack Week event series that we've been putting on. Even better, make sure you connect with some of the folks that are probably getting started for the first time. The workshop link is in chat and it's streaming across the bottom of the screen right there. So make sure you get registered and checked in. Joining from Evanston, Illinois. Amazing. Lagos, Nigeria. That's great. We've got another person from Nigeria, someone from Chicago. Wow, first Global Hack Week. That's amazing. I really love to see it, y'all. I know y'all are excited. So, and of course, folks joining us from India and from Greece as well, Boston, amazing. So glad that y'all are really kicking it up in the chat right now. Once again, my name is Rosendo from MLH. I'm going to be here in the background, really just like, like making sure I'm answering some of your questions in chat, but make sure that you also direct some of your questions to the lovely individual I'm about to bring on stage. Without any further ado, welcome Michelle Malker. Hi, Michelle.
Hello, everyone. Great to be here. This is actually I've done a few hacks, so I'm very excited to be here and talking with all of you. I am in the Chicago area, so welcome to all those who are nearby. And I am very excited to talk about data. I think it's one of my favorite passions of data and even security. I include being careful with the company data as well. But so let's get going. And please, if there's anything that you have questions, type the questions in. I'm here. I've been working with the Oracle databases for a very, very long time. We won't go into how long, but I've been done with several versions of the Oracle database. But my title of my presentation is really the fact that let the database do the work. And we just care about the data. Because when I look at the data, that is one thing that always is the case. There's always the business questions. There's always things and value that you can get out of the data. And sometimes it doesn't matter what's going on the back end. But it is important to definitely consider the back end because we want it to be automated and allow it to do the different work. So I'm hoping everything is going well with the sharing and that you can see my slides. If that's not the case.
Hi, Michelle. Yeah, if you could add your screen to the queue, and
Let
I'll
me
add
add my screen again. I think I forgot to click one more button is what I forgot to do, isn't it? How about that? No. Now I can't hear you.
I'm still not seeing it. You go ahead and hit the present button at the bottom navbar tab.
Yeah. Technology, we got to love it, right? Let me just share the whole screen.
Awesome.
Let's try it this way.
Wonderful. And without further ado, there we go.
There we go. So you didn't see my first introductory slide. Just has my name and some of that information, which is fine. Again, letting the database do the work. I mean, let it do some of the automation. We really care about the information and data that we're storing and getting the value out of it. So instead of actually generating, having to work all this, we're going to use it to generate data solutions instead of doing a lot of the SQL and the coding for it. Now, I will say that we do have to understand some of the things that are going on in the back end with SQL and take a look at it. But if the database can generate the SQL statements for me, I'm all for that and leveraging those to really get into the data that we want to get into. So when we automate things in the database, when we automate patching, automate backups, uh, have security by default. That makes it so much easier for us to focus on the data and how we're using it and providing those real solutions. So, even in that case of multi-model approach, and I'll get into this because when I first started working with databases, I looked at relational, right? I had tables, I had data relating to each other with foreign keys, primary keys, doing those select statements. But now there's so many different ways of working with your data and how you can use it that I need that flexibility. And what if there's new innovations? What if there's new ways of using your data? How do I leverage that? So when I'm looking for databases, I'm looking for ones that provide me those new innovations very quickly, because even in the innovations, the time frame is getting smaller and smaller every time we use those. So I need to also have that flexibility in working with the data, knowing I can use it in relational, I can use JSON, I can use hierarchical data, I can use it for my machine learning, my graph queries, and everything that I'm looking at, right? So really what I want to look at here is how do we who's actually using a lot of this data, right? We might have different people in our companies, or as we're getting ready to start looking at different ways of using the data, we have different data professionals. We have the developer that is coding the applications and using the data. There's also some nice low code developers. I would classify myself in that category because I like taking what I have for data and then actually doing some Apex development on it, which is a low code environment that allows me to spin things up pretty quickly. And then, of course, I have my business users and my end users. Now, what's great is I'm seeing all these chats flying by. I'm seeing SQLite, Postgres, Mongo database. I haven't seen any Oracle Autonomous database. There's an Oracle. Great. So here's where I'm looking at this in how Oracle Autonomous Database actually works for all these different data types and allows you to even work with other databases that you might choose. So there's some really nice solutions, and I can use it to actually generate and declare my intended usage instead of having to worry about if I'm getting the backups or if I'm using things on what I need to do with patching and everything else that's going along with it. So when I'm able to declare what my intended use is and be able to generate some of the code and allow it to pull the data back, I'm really able to dive into some great business answers and add value with the data. So in looking at this, we're going to start with actually the data professional and developer, and then get maybe a little bit into some of the end user side of things. So if I'm a data professional and I'm really interested in the data and how it is stored, I have those different types of databases that we were just talking about, right? We have the hierarchical databases, we have network databases, and from these types of solutions, we also had a relational database that came from that. COD is actually, I call him the grandfather of the relational tables and databases, but it's how I store the values into it. I have different tables. I can normalize so I'm not duplicating data. I have different relationships between the tables and how I can use it. And then normally using SQL So a structured queried language to pull data back and get the answers from these tables. And so I can use these joins and then get my results. So I know you're actually going to be, as part of this Mad Hacks, you're actually going to be working with some of the live lab from the Oracle team, and actually learning some SQL statements and how to create SQLs and joins and get information back from your relational tables, from your JSON tables, and create graphs against this. So that's going to be great. It's also going to tie in, if you didn't participate last month, I know Jeff Smith talked to all of you about REST APIs. So that's another way to get at the data and pull that information in. So this is when you're looking at relational tables, you have that SQL language to pull back information. Now, hopefully we're not going to be boring. I don't want to be boring because I have some cool data, and we're going to stop with slides in just a second, and I'll show you some other things that you can do. But I do want to get in the part of how do we generate this data access, and how do we leverage that in using our data in different ways, right? So I have the relational. This is not always convenient for the developers because on how you're working with the data and using it, maybe you need just APIs, maybe you need the JSON documents, maybe you need the data in a different format, maybe you just want the outcomes from the machine learning algorithms, or you want to see and visualize the data as graph queries. And so that's where on the Oracle side, we've really put together some really nice ways of working with this data in all these different ways. And so I can have my relational tables in, as for example, here is showing like a student schedule. I can have a student and classes and then a class schedule, and those are all tables on the back end, but I can use an API and get that as JSON, or I can put a view on top of these relational tables and use it as JSON with inserts, updates, and deletes, so I can edit even through that information. So in using this in ways, I have nice, easy ways to access the data, not worrying about necessarily everything that's going on in the back end. So in Oracle 23 AI, our latest release of the Oracle database, we've added a lot of this functionality to be flexible on how we're working with data. So if we want to work with relational tables, we can. If we want to work with it as JSON, we can. And there's benefits in how you're using it. Remember when I said in the beginning, I've been working with a lot of different releases of different databases and even of the Oracle database. But one thing that is constantly changing are new ways of using your data, new ways of leveraging it. So I want that flexibility built in here. So if I need to use it for a specific purpose of actually querying relational or updating fast transactions, I can do that. And then using the JSON in application development with either API calls or actually being able to use that for different applications. There is flexibility. I like that question. Is there flexibility on how you can present the data? Absolutely. But you also need to use the data. The data has to understand what's going on. Where are the relationships? I can present it in so many different ways, but if I can work with it on the database in the format that it's also intended, I get easier ways of presenting the data. So if I have just the relational option, I might have to do some really complex queries to get it into JSON format to present it. But I don't want to do that. I want the database to take care of it for me and make it a lot easier. Or if I want to do different machine learning algorithms, on my JSON data, I don't want to have to figure out, okay, do I need to put this in a different format first before I can do my machine learning against it, and then being able to access that data? I want to actually let the database handle a lot of those pieces for me, and being able to do machine learning on my relational data, on my JSON data, and leverage it in that way. So it's not just about the presentation, but also the different algorithms that you can do and the analytics that you can do on your data, making it a lot easier to use on the back end and then present it in ways on the front end. All right, so that's why I'm looking as how I'm going to work with the data. I want to work with the different models. I don't want to have to worry about how I'm storing it or how I'm keeping it. I want to be able to do tables. I want to be able to do JSON documents, and I want to be able to do graph and machine learning and even vectors, and use that in that way without having to go to different places to get my data or doing integrations in how I'm using it. And that's where the Oracle Autonomous Database and then 23AI play a big part, because I can store it in these multiple different ways, use the data for my machine learning, my graph queries, and even for my APIs. I don't have to pick a specific use case. Now, if I wanted to store something in just JSON, I can leverage the Oracle database to do that too, and actually just running it in as JSON, and that would be all the JSON that I'm storing in the database. And I can use that as JSON if I knew that's all I was going to do with it. I can also connect to something like MongoDB from Oracle, because maybe that's my JSON store, but then I want to bring stuff in to match up with my relational tables and do machine learning against that. So this flexibility of being able to use the different formats or generate the different formats of data and using it in ways that are innovative for the business is a very important concept, especially going forward when we're dealing with AI and how we're handling that and where things are getting generated. And it's moving pretty quickly on how we have to use our data in these new ways instead of just thinking about relational. Okay, so real quick check, were there any other good questions that were coming through? I saw a few. Sounds like a bit, yes, exactly. It is some data engineering and data architecture. Notice I didn't say necessarily database engineering or database architecture, right? Because I can have things actually analyzed, or the database actually handle a lot of those typical things that we deal with systems, the backups, the availability, the security, and those areas. Let the database handle that so I can focus on some of the data engineering and the data architecturing of how I'm going to use this. What is my intent with the data, and leveraging it in all these great ways with my applications. Okay. All right. I know I've mentioned the Oracle database a few times. Obviously, I work for Oracle, but I've been using this database for quite a few years now. And this is where I find a nice way, an easy way to spin something up and being able to use it. I know you all are getting free credits in the Oracle Cloud Infrastructure or Oracle Cloud Infrastructure, OCI. You're getting different accounts to be able to spin up different services that you can use, but there's an autonomous database there. And even when the credits run out of these accounts, you can have an autonomous database for free. And this free database has all these different things built into it. It has the patching, the security, scalability, optimizations, all the stuff that I don't want to spend all my time doing and worrying about. It has different AI to help fix workload issues on how I'm using it. It has great tools that make it easy to manage and use the data in different ways. And it also has this multi-model approach to the data. So I can store JSON documents, I can store relational tables, I can store vector data types into the autonomous database. And then I can leverage that for different analysis of the data, different analytics, different ways of querying it, low code development, all kinds of different ways that I want to actually program against it and use that data for my different applications. Graph is a very nice example of that. Relational tables, right? I can basically pick out relationships on the tables by querying those tables and getting, okay, because they're foreign key and primary key constraints, I can get that information out. But graph is a really nice way to get some of those deeper insights to your data for your different connections that you have with the data. If you think about different use cases for a graph, we're on a social media platform, right? How are we all connected is a good use case for graph. Another way on some of the financial institutions that we work with, fraud detection, another good way of looking for graph. And I promised you all some gaming data. If I look at the graph and actually look at how I am scoring against others, what features of my character have I built up that is actually going to give me the most bang for my buck or make me be able to have the most productive game that I'm going to be able to do. So, if I'm assisting in different games, how is leveling up going to be important for that? And so even that graph and those very deep connections that are part of that. And machine learning, I can actually use machine learning to do analysis. If I have different levels on my characters, is that going to be able to allow me to win my game better? Or can I predict which character is actually going to be more advantageous to use for this quest? And I can do actually some of the machine learning on my data based on the character, based on different outcomes of the game, and how I'm pulling in my data from different streams or different information that about my game and character that I can actually leverage and do some machine learning predictions on that. So hopefully you're finding, yes, there are relevant challenges for this session that you'll get into later. And you'll be actually looking at some of the JSON data, the graph, how to create those in the Oracle Database 23 AI and using that for this. And I think this is probably my last slide, and I'm going to get into some live demos, which can go horribly wrong and horribly fun at the same time. So if we look on how we're going to do this, we want to keep it simple. We don't want to look at the complications of the database. We need the database to support all these different data and all this different information that we have. And so using the Oracle Autonomous Database or the Oracle Database 23 AI, we have a lot of that built into it. It's easy to use, easy to provision, and it's going to be scalable and consistent and secure. And then I can use it on all my different workloads in my different applications. And so let's have fun with some data now, right? I'm going to actually stop my sharing, and I'm going to share all my live demos here. So let me move this over because it worked really well to share it in that screen. And I'm just going to see how this works. All right, excellent. Perfect. All right, so what have I done here? I have logged into the OCI, Oracle Cloud console. I have a tenancy that I'm using. I've already gone out and created an autonomous database. Now, autonomous database, it takes about 2 minutes to provision, so you can start it off and you don't even have time to go grab some coffee, right? It's up and running and available for me to use. What I want to do is I want to show you just a few things on, because you're going to have some different ways of being able to sign up and do this on your own. I want you to be familiar with this so you can have some more fun with it and not worry about a lot of the back end stuff. So if I'm actually here and I go to database actions, you can see the REST that was talked about last month's hacking. Again, being able to set up REST APIs and using that. And then we have these database actions. So I already opened up database actions, and I want to show you from the development part of things. We have SQL, we have data modeling, our REST calls, Liquid Base for our connections and writing some of the queries, plus also some change control of our different objects, because one thing that's definitely sure that we're always going to have objects that change and how we use our data. JSON, if I want to see JSON and use documents and how I'm just working with JSON and not necessarily working with the relational tables, I can do that all in Autonomous. Remember, we're here in the Oracle database. I can quickly create charts, machine learning, Apex, Graph Studio, all in this one database that I have. So if I have a specific workload, I can leverage it and focus in on that specific workload. If I don't know what my workload is going to be, or know that maybe a year from now my requirements might change, I can use the same database to be able to change or teach my data new tricks on how I'm going to use it and use the Oracle Autonomous Database. So all of these options are available to you. And I know I'm going to go and be boring and go into my SQL worksheet, but that's okay, right? So in looking at SQL, I see all my tables and objects on the side here. Now, just to get some excitement going, let's just select star from KDE, which is my kill, death, and assist of the League of Legends gaming data. So I pulled data down from League of Legends. There's all kinds of data sets that you can see. Yes, of course we're gaming. Why not? And so I can actually see the different information from this table. I have my team that I was on. I can see if I was a victim, who was the killer of that, who provided the assist, and these are my relational tables, right? I can also see the position I was in the game itself. So the data that is collected, I can use and load into a database. I can use my APIs and access that data. I just really quickly did a quick data load here and uploaded that data from a CSV. I can load it from JSON documents. Or again, I can actually select from an API, as I can have my APIs here, as you saw in that beginning part of it. So I have my gaming data here, and I can see the information. There's also, if I want to look at different results of the gaming, I can, and yes, I am doing a live demo, so don't mind my typing here from match info. I can start to see what other data is provided for me. So this, it's a little bit older data, but that's okay, right? It's still gaming data. I can see the year, the season, the different teams that were available, the results of those teams, and which players were actually there on the for the different roles of those of that game, right? I can see the game length and the results of those games. So in pulling this data in, it's very easy to load it and start to query it. However, I have to learn SQL. I have to figure out all the SQL statements and everything else that I want to do. And for simple queries, yeah, okay, great. It makes sense. I can do that. But also with Autonomous Database, let me just ask it a question, right? Because that is what your business is going to come and do. But I'm curious, all right, what killer, so the one that has the most kills also has the most assists. And I can simply ask it this question. And it's going to go out to the database. And I'll show you a little bit of the background stuff that's happening here. And it's going to pull back who that user was in the game. And you can see he has, or this user has also, along with the kills, has over 1,500 assists in the game. Well, that's great. Let me look at the actual query. So without having to code the SQL statement or anything else here, I'm able to pull back the data and pull back the SQL statement so I don't have to write it, and I can copy and paste that and use it for different purposes. Below, it also gives me an explanation of the query, right? Hey, it says you wanted to know the kills and the assists. You have this table out here. It's called KDA. That's where I see all your data, where it is. I can go and grab the assist. I can go and group it by the killer, get the counts, and I want to bring back the one that has the most. So I'm fetching the first rows. So I can actually do things with the SQL statement here. I can update the SQL statement if I want different information. I can also copy and paste this into my SQL window over here and run this in my SQL and run and do things to generate, which I get the same results, right? Consistent results back, getting that information and using that, using the features of the Autonomous Database for that generative SQL statement and using all the different features of the tables with the different data types I might have stored and everything else that's there. Okay, so that's pretty cool, right? We can go out, grab the information, ask the database questions. You want to ask it one more? Let's ask it. Let's ask it another question. I'm curious as to what are the top 10. Oh, no, wait, what killer? Let's stay with killer. I have other data that we're going to talk about in a second. What killer also has the most deaths, right? So sometimes you actually end up dying more. I play that way. I sacrifice myself a lot in actually running the game and seeing that. Okay, so the same user also has the most deaths. So maybe they play a lot like I do when I'm gaming. Let's look at the explain plan for this because I want to see, okay, great. It did a group by killer. And it also here, take a look at the fact that it, oh, where's my victim? Oh, it normally has the victim. I must have asked my query slightly different, but that's okay. Let's see. I know I want to say what killer has the most deaths? Let's see if I can get a value for deaths. If not, victim would also tell me. All right, so I can also do get the victim data out of it, and it's returning very consistent results based on my query. And so this information just being able to come back, don't look at my kill death ratio. I know that's just kind of a hard thing to look at. But this makes it really easy to go and grab this information and generate it. Now, let me give you a little bit of background behind this. I have some settings. I have some AI settings. So in Autonomous, we have a thing called Select AI, and we're able to load large language models, which helps us to generate this query. I didn't have to write it or tell it how to write the queries. I'm leveraging open source data models, or in OCI, the cloud infrastructure where you can get your account, you can use what's called Gen AI. And that will allow you to get those large language models and use them to create the queries. So you can actually do that to with Autonomous Database and other services that are available in OCI. You can use an API that connects to a large language models. Let me show you that as well. I know, right? So let me just say, let me go back to my screen here. I was asking my database these questions, right? But let me see, let me go out and use that to grab some information outside of my database. What is the most played video game? So even from my database, I'm going out using these models and grabbing the information from outside of the database to see what other information I can pull in. And now there's different ways of, uh-oh, did it stall out on me? There we go. I just didn't click it right. All right. So what we're doing is actually going out there and looking at the information that's available and the service, the Gen AI service, ChatGTP, different ways of going out there and grabbing this information. Most played video game, Minecraft, right? So that one has a huge platform and a lot of players out there. This League of Legends, what I pulled, was also a very popular game, and especially in red team and blue team against each other, and how you're using it too, right? Cool stuff. Hopefully. All right. But wait, there's more, right? There's a lot more I can do with this and looking at it. I'm going to give you just a quick behind the scenes look. Oh, and signed again. My hardest part of this is always remembering my passwords, not necessarily dealing with the data, but actually remembering what I set up for the passwords and everything else. All right. So I have to think for a second. Hopefully that's the right password. Great. So what this is, this again, remember in our Autonomous Database, we had all these different options with SQL and with how we're using the data. We also have this low code platform that's Apex. And so that's what I did here. I created a little Apex app. That's how I can go and select from my tables and everything else. And I can chat with my database in doing this. It is using the Select AI and the OCI Gen AI service to pull all that information together. And this is not a lot of code, right? These are some easy plans that it's coming back. If I go and look at my explain, which is how the explain information about the SQL statement, I can go and see here that I have some queries that are defined and looking at them, and it just goes out and you can see this prompt of a SQL Select AI and the profile that's there. That's also not a lot of code. We have some live labs that will show you how to do this. Can you use the Gen AI? Yes, you can use Hugging Face. That's the flexibility that's built into this. I can store it into, if I do and create embeddings on data, I can store that in the Oracle database with the vector data type. So there's a lot of flexibility on how I'm using this data and how I'm able to query it. So hopefully you're all thinking Well, you know what? I know you're all thinking because the chat's going like, oh, we can do this with the data. We can do this with the data. That's exactly where you want to be in thinking on how can you use the data in all these different ways. All right. So this is a very simple app, easy to stand up. You're going to get access to Live Labs and information on that because that's part of the challenges on how to use it. I will also send some in chat when I'm finish my demonstration here to give you a few to actually be able to set up what I just did with the chat database. So, all right. So what's next? What else can I do? I have other tables out there for gaming. Let me see if I can find some of this information. We just asked actually the out there in the internet world, we just asked what is the most played game that is out there. However, as my company is looking at this or how I'm looking at this, I have specific data that's in my database that I want to use, right? So I have different sales data that I'm finding out and that I want to leverage. So I'm going to ask my database, my private database, the data that I've stored in it, I'm going to get that specific information and it's secure that I'm not sharing with the world. What are the top games? Oops, what are the top games? I might have to put sales in here, but let's see what it returns. Excellent. So what did it do? It went out to my data that's in the database and it pulled back the top games that I have in by sales. So as you can see here, this is game information, developer, total sales of the game. So I can go and look again at the explain plan, see the different information that is there. This is pulling back just the first 10 rows because I have a lot of other games listed in here. And it went out to my VG sales table. So my video game sales table makes sense. It went and found it. It said you wanted game information, you wanted sales information, and you didn't specify, the region or anything else. So I want the global sales, overall sales, right? So that makes sense. Can I get other information about this? Maybe I'm just more concerned about, North America. Yeah, I know everyone's from all over the world here, but there were a lot of people from Chicago too. So what are the most sales or what games, what games have the most North America sales? And it doesn't even have to be perfect English, which is fabulous, right? All right. So as that's going out and pulling back the information, great. Is it different? Let's see. We have at the top Wii Sports, Mario Brothers, Duck Hunt. Oh, Kart is more global than Duck Hunt being in North America. So now you can actually start to see and compare. And maybe there's some data that you can dive in deeper. Is there some different machine learning, different algorithms that I can use? How can I relate that and connect these sales information with the different social aspect of how I'm promoting the games and leverage all of those different ways of working with the data to also get benefits out of it? And that's where you can spend your time, because I didn't have to do, I know you may not believe me, but I didn't have to do anything else with Autonomous besides just create it. I have an app that I did very, very little code with, leveraging everything that was in the Autonomous database to be able to produce these results and get information, because now I can spend a lot of my energy. When you talked about data engineering and data architect, that's where you can spend your time. And how are you going to use this information now in your apps as you're developing it? What can I do with this data and get into more information? All right, so what else do we want to ask? Well, let's ask what is the most, typing in the wrong window, so hold on a second. What is the most sold game platform? Also curious. How are people playing their games, right? Are they using Switch? Are they using, PS2? Again, the total sales on the PS2 has the most sold game platform in my company data, right? In my data. I have a little that toggle ask the database that's not using anything else. Prompt. Yes, prompt must have some value. Sorry, I meant to explain. Let's see that information about explain. Again, because I didn't specify where I wanted the data, it took the global sales data. I can find out more about this table going into my SQL actions and seeing, well, let's see, where is this VG sales table? I know it exists because I've been querying and getting that information. Oh, look, I have North America sales, EU sales, JPAC sales. So I have different types of sales that are part of this that will help me as well. So in being able to do that, I can probably take that query. Well, I know I can take that query and go back and actually, let's see if I use one of these instead of global sales, I can actually start querying my data and getting information if I just use my North America sales. And I should get back X360 in North America. So the global sales is different than the North America sales. So now I can go back and look in and see what else is going on, right? I can dive into, do more investigation, throw some analytics on there, leverage it for the machine learning, and go from there. All right, great. Were there any other real questions? I mean, there's a lot of great comments flying by. I'm trying to talk and not pay too much attention. Were there any other good questions that came across? Otherwise, I have more questions from my database. What do you guys think? Can we get the slides? Absolutely. This all is demo, however. There are no slides with the demo, but you'll get a link to how I set up this database, chat with my database. You'll get information on how to do that. And when you spin up your free autonomous database, you can do the same. All right. So let's go back to some of our gaming data because, right, we've basically just been selecting from simple tables. The relational, they make sense. Let's start to get some numbers back to actually have some of that information. So if I want to do, what are the, what is the average game length, right? So if we looked at the League of Legends, what is my average game length? And pull that information back, because these types of things are going to feed into machine learning. Is it different? Is this the average length of the game? Is that going to help certain players over other players if it's a shorter game versus longer game? If I'm looking at it, is certain amount of kill and death, if I'm dying as fast as I'm killing people, is that game length going to change? So these are the questions that you can start innovating and start asking even more and leverage things like the machine learning that's available, and being able to do those types of those pieces of information. So I've got the average game, but what is the longest game that was played in my data set, right? So I've got 37 minutes as my average time, and the longest game was only 95 minutes. So what factors are part of that game that might benefit the certain players? Are there different players on top of that? Well, if I go and I grab my explain my query again, maybe I can get into some more details on what's there and actually see what's happening, right? So maybe I don't want to do my max game length. I want to see my everything from my table where length, right? Let me see. I missed my copy. Oh, yeah, game length, where game length, see if I can type, equals 95, right? Because we got the information back, we knew what the answer was, but let's see some of the details of that match that happened. So we have different blue players that are listed. I can dive into the different results. Maybe there's more information on my match info, which is another table that I have available, and grab that information. So a lot of the data is having fun in playing and selecting and getting more details, and then figuring out some of the questions or getting some of the questions from the business, or even just innovating and asking new questions. I was actually talking to a customer and they wanted to leverage everything that was in the database because it allowed them to innovate for new ideas and new applications, and getting to a place where they didn't have to worry about all the backups and the patching, and they didn't have to worry about which platform they used, because they had the flexibility here to use the data in all these different ways, and being able to leverage it for new ideas and being able to query it for those types of things. So I can go in and look at the data, and you'll see here I have a lot more information about my red support, which players, and then I can dig into player information and maybe graph that out. If the game gets long, what players are actually connected, or which teams were actually put together. Are those normally the longer games? And so that innovation becomes then key on how you're using that data on the back end. All right, I have a couple more things to show you. We're almost out of time for our kickoff of Data Week. I'm so glad it's Data Week, let me tell you, because I really think that this is the most, I guess the most exciting part about the database, is actually looking at all these different options that you have with the data. Let's see, I've asked different questions about kills and assists. I've asked about my sales. I've asked about my platforms. Oh, maybe I can find out what is the most sold genre of video games. Now, this might come back. Oops. Let me do games instead. The reason why this might come back slightly confused, and I'll tell you why, is I actually have movie data, which it might think that should I go to the movie data? Sold game genre. And if I put game in there, it's going to have an easier time. Oh, I should have stopped while I was ahead with my queries and everything else, right? Let me just go here. Action. So there we go. We did get the response back that the question coming back was actually from the previous one. So the most sold game genre is action. Well, kind of makes sense, right? In some of those areas where you're running around and doing that. So how did it get that information? Again, it's going to do just simple functions on it. It's going to do group by, pull back the first rows, and pull back the information order by the total sales. So there's all of that with the game data. A lot of our live labs actually have a data set that we use that is Movie Stream. If you want to know where I got this data set and want to try some of the live labs with this data set, I'll put in that in a link as well. I'm in the Discord, so I can basically go out there and give you that information. But if you want to try some of the game data set, I will send that your way. But we also have in many of our live labs a thing called Movie Stream, and it's also why it's a fake company, gives you some movie data. And again, I can go out and ask, what are the top watched movies? And that's going to go out wherever it gets information. So the service is going to use that and go and grab the information. It pulls back things like most popular, highest grossing, gives me a little bit more detail. It's not returning in a table because it's not from my database or the information that I've stored, but in my fake company of Movie Stream, what I want to know, what are the top movies as well? What are the top 10 streamed movies? And I can pull that back and compare the list of what is in my company versus what is available out there. So I do have Avengers Endgame. Next was Captain Marvel, Lion King, Star Wars. Of course, Star Wars has to be on the list. And so that is coming from my tables and my data that I have stored in my database. So this pulls back that type of information. So what have we done? We've actually gone out. We've been able to grab the SQL statements, right? Go and look at these SQL statements that you can learn to write or learn how to generate, that you don't have to write them, and pull back information about movies, streams. We have the game sales. We have the actual game data based on kill, death, and assist information that is out there, and pull all this information back and get the queries that we can modify and do. My movie data, for example, has JSON documents in it. I have different data types that are available to me. I can leverage some of those models that we were talking about with large language models, do some encoding and store my embeddings in my database. And guess what? Now that becomes part of the data that I can do similarity searches and query and get a bunch of information from the data. So that's an excellent question. Just got here, missed a lot. It's okay. There are some great things out there that will help you get to this stage of where I am with this chat database. And the live labs that you're going to walk through are actually going to show you how to do this. So can you do this from scratch yourself? Yes, you can build this app that I've just been demoing, from creating your own autonomous to basically going out there, loading your data, getting the information, and then actually this Apex app is available to import into your autonomous, or you can use it and create new pages and look at how you work with Apex and creating pages. I actually did create another page I wanted to show you all. So this is different apps. I can create a new app from a worksheet, from tables that I've stored. I have some video game sales that I'm going to just run this app that I created. It's a very quick app. I log in. I can set up different authentication authorization rules in my application. Remember, I said security was another passion of mine, because you have to protect your data, right? It's important to the company. And so I can go and look how easy it was. This information was just a simple create page from my table. And look what it did for me. It created these facets and the search already for me to be able to use. So I can go and look at those action games that we said had the most popular genre that we had. I can go look at the different platforms of what that is. And I have table data that's being pulled back and information that's from there on how to use that. So I will definitely, you will definitely have the opportunity to build some of this when you take on the challenges that are available. And there's different things in live labs and in autonomous that give you that information. So I hope you enjoyed learning about all the fun that you can do with the data, how you can innovate with the data, start asking new questions, and working with a database that provides you flexibility on how you can use your data, that it's not the old relational tables, right? There's a bunch of other things that we can do with it, with JSON, being able to graph using vectors and using it with our machine learning algorithms, and even just simple queries or different programming languages that you want to do and work with it that way. So it's less prone to hallucination. That's a really good question. If I'm using my company data, right, in that database area, the hallucinations are going to be minimized because it's not trying to make up stuff that it's going out there and looking for, right? It's actually leveraging the data that I have and assigned to my models and how I'm using it. And so it's going to prevent some of those hallucinations from happening when you're dealing with a lot of the vector information. So that it was a really good question. If I'm specifically going to my database and getting the information there, I basically augmented it, or basically told it, this is your data set that you're able to use. And it's either going to give me an error back if it can't find it, or it's going to be able to leverage the data that I already have and curated and worked with for my business to be able to augment that generative AI piece of working with my data. All right, I'm going to stop sharing. Any other questions? I will be checking in on Discord, and please feel free to reach out if you have any other questions.
Amazing. Thank you so much again, Michelle, for this wonderful session and all of the knowledge that you had to share with us. I think, as you can see from the chat, a lot of the folks are very pleased with the demo. I hope y'all enjoy working with Oracle. Once again, if you have any questions, definitely hit us up on Discord. The channel is Ask-Oracle, and Michelle will be in there, as well as a bunch of her esteemed colleagues available to answer any of the questions that you may have. Once again, thank y'all for joining us. Michelle, thank you for joining us. Really appreciate it. We'll see y'all at the next session. Keep it locked in because we have 11MQ coming up right now, and we'll see you there. All right, y'all. Bye.
Thanks, everyone.